Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face in my card making space. And another card using the Simon Says Stamp Layered Bunny Wafer die set. I've done many videos using this little dude. And I might have to set up, I'm just thinking now, I might have to do up a playlist because that's what I do for those that aren't aware. I do playlists on my YouTube channel. So if you go to the main channel page, there's tons of them, because all different categories, you know, whether it's a certain set that I use over and over again for ideas, or a certain type of product like distress watercolor pencils, or, you know, things like that. I put all of the videos into a playlist, and then that makes it a lot easier for people to find them because I've got a lot of videos on my channel. So yeah, hopefully while I'm doing my editing, I'll probably set up a playlist for this little dude because I'm just a little obsessed with him. One, it's that time of year, you know. And I did a live recently using him, and I know not everyone watches my lives. That's totally okay. They're not for everyone. They are lengthy, etc. But I did the live, and I had a lot of questions from people that like either didn't watch the live, didn't have time for it, you know. And I thought, why don't I do something somewhat similar, but I'm going to use different markers this time. The last time I used my Olo markers. This time I used just my Spectrum Noir TriBlends because you can use what you have, you know. That's also what I like to do. I'm always like jumping around doing different coloring methods. Like I think I've used the distress watercolor pencils with this little dude. I think I did ink smushing once as well. And I used my Olo markers. This time my TriBlends. Like, the sky's the limit, you know? You can just use what you got. It's great. So I did some die cutting and some coloring and some another cloudy sky background and splatter and all the fun things. So as always, links will be to everything in the description box below the video. If you expand it, I've got affiliate links to all of the supplies I used. Affiliate links just means that if you click on one of my links and place an order, I get a kickback that adds up over the month, you know, that helps pay the bills, etc. And that does not cost the customer anything. It's no additional cost, etc. And yeah, that's what helps keep the heater running so I don't freeze in my garage. It helps me keep pumping out videos. So keep watching and I'll show you guys how I made this adorable little bunny card. So I die cut everything from Simon Says Stamp's smooth white cardstock because that's just my go-to cardstock for alcohol ink coloring anyway. And then, yeah, Spectrum Noir TriBlend markers. I will also link at the end of this video in the end screen. I have a playlist for the Spectrum Noir TriBlends as well because I've done quite a few videos using these. And like I was saying in the intro, use whatever you've got, whatever your preference is. Do I need multiple types of alcohol markers? No. My curiosity always gets the best of me. It's not the best for my wallet, but it gets the best of me. And I'm always just, it's like, I wonder what these markers are like. And it just gives me, I don't know, I'll use them for a bit and then I go back to the Copics and then I switch now to the Olos and I'm just jumping all over the place like a bunny rabbit. Anywho, I super sped up this coloring, but it's pretty basic and it looks messy. It is messy. It's not going to matter when you layer all the pieces on. I decided this time to make him a very much brown bunny, you know. This is a very, very spring card, and while I made this card and while I'm editing this video, we have snowdrifts that are literally taller than I am. So all the bunnies around here, because we've got a lot of them, they're still pure white. And yeah, I'm really annoyed with the local wild bunnies. I'm not even kidding. Because of the snowdrifts, they've got a drift that has given them access to my flowering crabapple tree that I have. And yeah, every night lately they've been coming around and they chew on it and it makes me not happy. Not happy at all. We've got they've built a little highway of rabbit tracks and there's rabbit poop everywhere. And yeah, they've been chewing on my plants. But the plants will grow back, or the tree will grow back because they've done this before. Anyway, made this bunny brown. And because, once it actually does get warm, out here. They change from white to brown. And even though I'm annoyed with them, they're so cute. They're so cute. And this die cut is super adorable. So I did all my coloring. I used the Earth Brown Blend and the Earth Brown Extend colors, because you saw I used the 2 different markers, so basically like 6 shades to get all those bits and pieces. And yeah, there's etch line details and everything to adhere all the pieces. And then for that kind of backer piece that die cuts, I colored like that one little edge, which looks weird, but that's like one of his eyes. And I don't normally do this. However, this cardstock is very heavyweight. And because I colored him so dark, I decided to cover it because you can really see that white cardstock peeking around the edges there. And I was like, ooh, that doesn't look great. So I just used the brown. I used the dark gray one. It was the ice gray blend right where his eye was. And then I used the darkest shade of the brown marker to go all around the edges, kind of the same way I would do with when I do pattern paper, paper piecing, that sort of thing. I also did it with this piece because same thing, the white exposed white edge was just really, really obvious with these darker colors. So I just quickly went around those edges with the marker, covered it up, everything's good to go. So then you just layer the pieces on and put in his little ears. His ears and his nose, I used the Antique Pink blend, which I ended up using on the florals as well, because I was like, ooh, these colors are they're just pretty. So got him all assembled, and seriously, like, look at this fat little dude. He's so cute. He's so cute. So got them all assembled, and then I pulled out my white Jelly Roll pen and started off adding like just highlights, and then decided to kind of add almost little fur highlights, just little scribbles, just to give them a little extra texture and whatnot. So another way I'll add texture sometimes, and I show, is I'll just use the markers, and the darker shades to add little dots and whatnot. It just kind of breaks everything up so it's not super smooth. And again, it usually just kind of depends on my mood. But this is also a nice way if you're not the happiest with your blend on something, if you add some texture to it, it always just kind of amps it up a bit, or at the very least distracts the eye, so you don't notice. But I was happy with this blend, but he looked cute with a little extra texture. So then for my florals this time, I used the etched crocus stems, and same thing, die cut them from the same smooth white cardstock. And then I did the stems first, and I used just it's called the dull green blend. And because I'm working on my glasswork surface, you can see I'm not worried about getting any of this ink on here. This cleans up. I just use hand sanitizer. A little bit of rubbing alcohol also works, because alcohol markers, it cleans them right up. And I only clean up when I'm switching between colors. So doing all this greenery, don't care. Let all that ink get all over the place. It's not going to matter. It was the same thing with the bunny. I cleaned it up before I went from the browns to the greens. And then after I did the stems for 2 of the florals, I'm going to use that Antique Pink blend, because it was funny. I had a completely different color combo in my head when I started this. And then I was like, nope, I'm going with pink, and then I'm going to add some purple. So with these, you could layer them like I'm doing, like how they're meant to be, but you could also just do them like as is and leave off the layer on the back. It's just kind of personal preference. But I just did like I'm doing with everything, and like I do almost all the time with alcohol marker coloring. I go darkest to lightest. For me, it's a convenience thing. And I didn't even worry about fully coloring in these individual pieces of the florals, because those are going to get adhered behind, which I'll show in a minute. So colored those ones. And then for my purple ones, I used the dusty, is that what it's called? Yeah, dusty purple blend. So, and same thing, darkest to lightest. And with the pieces that are going on the back, I put the darkest at the top so that you'll see that bit of, difference between the shades when everything's adhered together. And yeah, I'd cleaned up the marker mess on my work surface from the green, and then same with, I think I left the pink because it doesn't matter, from pink to purple, it's not a big deal. And then same thing, once I'm done with this one, a little bit of hand sanitizer, clean that up, good to go. So got all my little blooms colored, and now I can just adhere them together. Same as with the bunny, I just use a bit of craft tacky glue. So stick that along the bottom, stick those together, and it just finishes off these little blooms. And then, no surprise here, I also pulled out the Windswept Leaves wafer die set, which I've used in so many cards. So many cards. This is just one of my favorite greenery die sets. So I die cut same cardstock with that. And this time I use the Alpine green blend. Because when you're doing greenery, you want to kind of use like different shades of green between the different types. It doesn't have to be like exact. But mixing up the shades of green definitely gives, a different look and keeps everything from looking the same. And using markers, I've talked about this before. This is a nice way if you don't have a whole lot of colors of cardstock, either using, markers and it doesn't even have to be alcohol markers. Heck, even Crayola markers work. Color pencils, etc., etc. Like there's so many ways you can color, and I've shown a bajillion different ways, ink blending, etc., to get different colors of die cuts without needing to have, 50 different colors of cardstock, because not everyone has, all the things. Heck, I don't even have all the things. I'm working towards it. Might take me a while. So, colored all those. Got everything cleaned up. Set those aside. For my background, another oldie but goodie that I don't even bother putting away. This is the Simon Says Stamp Thank You Text background stamp. So I just flip it over so it's face up on my work surface, and I inked it up with just a light gray ink. That's Simon's Flannel Positively Saturated ink. And then I just pressed a panel of A2 smooth white cardstock into it. So I got that pressed in, put that on the background, and then I'm going to stencil over this. In a couple more recent videos, I used a cloud wafer die and masking paper to create my cloud backgrounds, but I said in those videos, I was like, you can use a cloud stencil. So this time I was like, how would I show using a cloud stencil? So this is another oldie but goodie. This is the Clouds for Days stencil. This came out years ago. And it has cloud, openings there too, like individual ones. I'm covering those up with Post-it tape because knowing me, and it's guaranteed, I will get ink where I don't want it. So I use Post-it tape to mask off those openings. I'm using my Waffle Flower grip mat. This is currently unavailable. I talked about this. I think it was in my live. So those that didn't watch it, Waffle Flower is having to go to a new manufacturer. So basically this is discontinued, but they're gonna bring it back. So we're just gonna have to wait. But I'm not gonna stop using it. At least not for now. We'll see what happens with all the things. But the other size one, fits in the MISTI, is still currently available. So, and that's the one I have linked. So anyway, got my grip mat to hold my cardstock, and it also holds the stencil in place. And then I'm using another shade of Positively Saturated ink. This is Dew ink and a blending brush. And basically, when I'm doing a background like this, I get ink on my brush. There's light. I'm not mushing my brush into the ink pad. And I always apply the brush first to the stencil. And I'm basically dragging the ink off the stencil onto the cardstock. That gives me a bit of a smoother blend. And that also gives me, more ink right towards the very edge of the stencil there. That's how I get that more crisp, sort of deeper line of the clouds. And then I let it kind of feather out and blend out. And I just work my way from top to bottom. And I kept rotating the stencil so you get a different cloud edge every single time, because you don't want it looking the exact same. Moving it around, even if you only have one cloud edge, if you shift it left to right, left to right, left to right, that would also work. So after I blended my background, this is an extremely oldie but goodie. This is the Scallop Stitches wafer die. I'm not even kidding. I think this came out 8 years ago, something like that. Man, it's been a long time. This is old. So it has these 3 different wafer dies that do little scallops and a little stitch line, which you can't really see the stitch line because I die cut. This is some really dark cardstock. This is Simon's dark chocolate cardstock. But I use the widest scallop wafer die. And I just cut it into this. This was just a scrap of this dark brown cardstock. And then I'm using the scallop die on the other side of it. So it just kind of looks a little weird right now, but as always, there's a method to the madness. So I'm just taping the die into place with a little bit of my Craft Perfect die tape. And that's just to hold it right along the very edge of this scrap of cardstock. And then I run it through my die cut machine. And then I moved it to the other side of that same cardstock, ran it through again. So I've got these 2 scallop lines with stitching on here. And then I'm going to remove that wafer die. And now I'm going to trim this to 5.5 inches tall with my trimmer. And once I trim off both ends, those little pieces are going to come off. So I've got that like scalloped edge. And then I'm going to cut this in half. So I have 2 pieces with a scalloped edge. And then once it's cut in half, these are going to kind of frame out my little main image, which my background, I'm going to trim about 1/2 inch off each side. So it's, you know, shorter on the sides, but it's still 5.5 inches. So, and then I'll put those scalloped edges on each side. So hopefully that made sense. That was the method to the madness. So I used my craft tacky glue to adhere that and just get those lined up on either side. And then once I've got these in place, at this point, this is where I should have drawn the grass in. I'm going to do it later because it was kind of an afterthought. But if I was to redo this, I would just, you know, add something, because I've talked about this before. When I'm doing a card like this with like a sky type background, it's like the images aren't like floating in the sky. They need some ground. So I wasn't really thinking about it until, like, again, after I had already adhered everything. So I just assembled my die cuts. I snipped a couple apart and just adhered all these different little leafy bits from the, my brain stopped again. Windswept leaves. That's what we were going for. Die set. And then I adhered my little etched crocuses. And then Mr. Bunny, I was going to pop up, or I am going to pop up with some thin foam squares. And once I was, you know, I peeled off all the backing here and was about to adhere them. And then I was like, wait a minute, it needs some ground. You know, this isn't floating in the sky. So I just used my green marker. I think it was the dull green blend, I think. Either one. They're both great. And just kind of flicked it from the bottom to create little grass stems. So like I said, I would have done this before adhering all the bits, but it was fine. And then popped the bunny into place with my foam squares. And then I took the cardstock. There was enough space on from where I die cut the bunny. And I used that antique pink blend TriBlend marker to create a little ombre here. And I'm using the CZ Design Basic Trio die set, just one of the words from the Basic Trio. I use the Hugs word. And I die cut it from that cardstock, as well as from a couple other scraps of just white cardstock. And the 2 layers of the white cardstock, I'm going to adhere those together to give this a bit of dimension. Also because, like, the bunny's popped up with a little bit of foam, and then there's the other die cuts behind it. So these will enable me to pop up the sentiment without having to, like, cut narrow little tiny strips of, like, foam adhesive. So adhere those together, and then I just trimmed off part of this because I only need that dimension on, like, the last half basically of the die cut sentiment. And then at this point I decided this also needs splatter, so I'm not going to adhere the sentiment just yet. I'm going to add my splatter first. So I'm going to put this into my splat box, and I'm going to use ground espresso distress paint for my splatter, because why not? So put a couple drops of that onto just one of my little plastic palettes, and then I'm going to use my fan brush, and I'm going to add a bit of water just to thin it out a bit until I get it to the consistency that I want. And then I'm going to splatter this card front with this ground espresso distress paint. So I'm going to tap that on, get it where I want it, where I don't want it, whatever. Just let it do its thing. I did think about, like, maybe masking the bunny off so that he didn't get any splatter on him, but then I was like, no, why not? That just adds a little more texture. It's fun. So yeah, and besides, I was like, he was probably running around in the dirt anyway, you know, because sometimes I just start creating little scenarios and stories for my little cards, because that's just what I do. So added the splatter, let that dry. And then on the inside of my card, so my card is going to be a top folding A2 white note card. I pulled out another oldie but goodie favorite. This is the XL Greetings 3 stamp set. And there's just lots of, again, XL, aka big greetings. Love. And I chose a greeting I wanted to use, which just says, just a card to say I'm thinking of you. This one I've used a lot. And I inked it up with that same Pawsitively saturated ink in the dew color. So I stamped that on the inside of the card, and then adhered my card front to the card base, again with some craft tacky glue. So got that into place. And then I'm going to adhere my die cut sentiment. And then I also found some bling in my stash. Again, big surprise if anyone's heard me talk about I have like multiple lifetimes of bling. It's starting to become a problem, but it's a good problem and I'm okay with it. So anyway, went through my stash and found the perfect shade. This is why I have so much, because for things like this. These are the Trinity stamps, Rosy Cheeks, little baubles. So stuck a few of those into place and then stuck a couple more into place because more is more. Why not? So poured them out into my triangle tray and managed to pour more onto my desk, which, you know, that's just always how it is anyway. And then stuck them into place with little dabs of Craft Tacky glue. And then I cut off that one little part of the leaf that's hanging over the edge of the card. Once that was snipped off, this card is complete. And seriously, you just want to squeeze him. He's so cute. He's just a chunky little bunny. So anywho, like I said in the intro, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below the video. And I did make a playlist for this little bunny dude, so I'll have that linked at the end, as well as my Spectrum Noir TriBlend playlist. I'll link that at the end as well for you guys to check out if any of you are interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.